Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I want to say good afternoon to those of you joining me here on the East Coast. It is just after 12 noon Eastern Time. I want to say good morning, of course, to those of you joining us in the Central Time Zones, the Mountain Time Zones, or the Pacific Time Zones as well. And, of course, good early afternoon or evening to those of you who are maybe joining us from across the pond in parts of UK or parts of Europe, and of course good early morning for any of you joining us in parts of Asia or Australia. Welcome to today's presentation, getting started with the patented search tool on PowerOptions. Today we're going to walk through some of the features of the search tool, some of the ideas for creating your own search, of course, and reviewing some of the default criteria that we have available for you to use as a stepping stone to create your own personal search. Before we begin, we just want to go into a quick introduction of what exactly is PowerOptions. Well, the PowerOptions tools are a one-stop shop for self-directed options investors. Our tools will allow you to search across the universe of options to find only those positions that match your criteria in a given strategy. We also have tools to help you further research and analyze the positions, and of course do further research and analysis, run what-if scenarios. And we also have a powerful set of portfolio tools to help you paper trade, track, and manage your positions. Now, Ernie Zarrenner created the PowerOptions tools back in 1997, but we've drastically expanded over the years based on customer feedback, changes in the market and availability of new options and new strategies, of course your feedback and investors' needs as well. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Chupka. I'm the Director of Education here at PowerOptions. I've had the great pleasure of working with Ernie Zarrenner, and I should say working with most of you for the past 16 years or so. And of course, I do use these tools to trade my personal accounts. In fact, I only log on to my brokerage accounts to place a trade. By the time I go to my brokerage account, I've already done my research and analysis of what trades I'm going to open, what scenarios I should expect, of course, or what management techniques I'm going to use on my open positions as well. And Indrajit says, good afternoon to all from Toronto. Well, good afternoon, Indrajit. It's great to see you all here and everyone else. All right, now, what is the search tool on PowerOptions? Well, this is one of our patented tools that gives you a way to customize the criteria used in a given strategy so you can quickly find only those positions that match your personal risk-reward tolerance. We'll take a look at this in just a moment, but in every strategy there are 4 separate sections in the search that you can use to tweak your criteria and narrow down the universe of options. In every search there's an options section which contains about 30 criteria to use. There's a stock technical section where you can input over 20 criteria to identify the stock technicals that you want. There's also a fundamentals view, 20 plus criteria that you can use also. And of course, there's a lists function which will allow you to create your own personal stock list or just select a predefined company list there as well. Okay? And of course, we support over 23, really 24 different strategies in the search tool as well. So various strategies that you can use to find just the positions that you want. Now, the options view in the search is similar for all strategies. You'll be able to customize your results based on the expiration time frame, or of course time value, or percentage time value if you're selling premium, or even if you're buying premium. You can narrow that down also. The implied volatility section, if you wanted to set a specific range for implied volatility, or the implied volatility range of the option. And of course, investors might use the IV over HV or IV over SIV to look for overvalued or undervalued options depending on your strategy. So that's one of the 3 features that you can use just to identify positions that you consider overvalued or undervalued. Of course, in every strategy that applies, mostly for selling premium, you'll see the return field where you can set your % return if assigned, downside protection range, minimum return on a credit spread, debit spread, a collar, for example, as well as in some strategies you'll be able to set your % to break even, annualized return as well. You can simply set the range in or out of the money for your strategy by number of strikes or by percentage. And of course, in the strike and price strike field, a lot of features available to help you set the limitation for your option bid price, Black-Scholes ratios, again to help with overvalued or undervalued, delta and other Greeks, as well as limiting the screen to percent or standard monetary bid-ask spread. So if you want to see smaller bid-ask spread, you can easily narrow that down. And for most strategies, of course, important in addition to delta, many of us use the theoretical probability, and that's available in those strategies also. And of course, lastly in the options field, your liquidity. You have limitations or requirements for option volume, total option volume, open interest, for example, put-call volume ratios and put-call open interest ratios. That's all available to you in the options section. Now our next section is the stock technicals. If you want to use beta, stock range, volume filters, volatility for the stock itself, broker recommendation, RSI, that's all available to you. Bollinger Bands is one of the features that Ernie and I like to use for our technical indicators, for buying options, or even doing other strategies as well. So you can set a variety of different ranges, percent ranges for the Bollinger Band or the Bollinger Band width. Simple moving average features, looking for stocks that are above or below a 20 or 50 or 100-day moving average. And of course, there's also fields for historical trends, number of days the stock's up and down, or days above the SMA 20 or 50, and of course, the MACD filter that you can use in all strategies also, okay? All right, just seems some question came in there, so we'll get to that question later in just a moment. All right, the fundamentals tab. Well, same for all strategies. You could set your limitation for stock price, change in the stock today, popular things such as the earnings per share growth, PE ratio, PEG ratio, dividends, just a screen for stocks that pay a certain percentage dividend, market cap, looking for larger, mid, or even small cap stocks. Of course, there's also bankruptcy indicators with the Z prime score, and Springgate. In the search tool, once you have your results, you can also narrow it down by symbol, one at a time. So I see a list of results, maybe 150 results that match my criteria, but I quickly want to find Tesla. Or Sam's joining us today and he's having some trades with Roku, so he can put that in as well and see if that particular option in that strategy and that underlying security is there. In all strategies, you'll also be able to avoid stocks that have an earnings between now and expiration, or specifically look for stocks that have an earnings between now and expiration or between now and a few weeks from now, thinking about long straddles or long strangles for earnings plays. And of course, you can also filter by the ex-dividend date to be between now and expiration, not between now and expiration, between now and a few weeks from now if you're screening for dividend stocks. The last section in the search for all strategies is the list field. This will allow you to specifically include or exclude a sector or industry from your specific search. You can also include the stock lists, where you can put in your watch list for the stocks that you're tracking and choose to screen just against those in a given strategy. Or we've got some preset company lists for you. If you wanted to scan just against the S&P 100 or the S&P 500, value line lists, NASDAQ, IBD, many more, those are all available to you to include in your search or exclude. If I wanted to take out leveraged ETFs or inverse market ETFs from a particular search, I could use the exclude function. You can also create your own personal list at any time, which will record across all strategies. If you have a list of 20 to 30 stocks you track on a regular basis, you can create your own personal stock list and select to screen against those at any time. All right, so that's an overview of what's available in every strategy. The search is flexible, it's customizable, but okay, it can be intimidating. I understand that. That's part of the reasons why I'm here and why I have a job with PowerOptions, is to help investors focus on what they want and use only the criteria that matches their needs. Do you really need 30 different option criteria and 40 different stock criteria or more in a given search? No. But the idea behind these tools is that it could apply to any investor, that Ernie and I could go and grab 50 people from the CBOE floor, put them in front of 50 different computers and say, okay, create your best search for the given market conditions and your favorite strategy. And we'd get 50 different search criteria from those 50 different users. The tool is designed to work for all investors, and it may seem intimidating as I mentioned. Do you need all that criteria? Well, you might want to focus on return when you're looking for credit spreads, naked puts or covered calls. You might want to focus on the range out of the money, making sure you're at least 3 or 4% out of the money with a short option and a bull put or bear call credit spread, where another investor uses delta or uses the probability. You might want to use the implied volatility or the implied volatility range, where another customer is more interested in focusing on the Bollinger Bands and the volatility of the stock. And I, of course, might use MACD and RSI. So although it may seem intimidating, you're never going to put a filter in for all 70 plus of the criteria that are available. The key is keep it simple. Put in what you want to see, put in what you know. Whether you know it or not, you do have criteria already in mind. With all the power of this tool available at your fingertips and our market experience, Ernie's decades of trading options in the stock market, and my 15 years, and everyone else here on staff, 12 to 15 years or more with PowerOptions, why do you have to put in your own criteria? Well, you don't. Every search for our 24 different strategies has default searches for you to use for trading ideas or as a stepping stone to create your own personal search. Of course, you might be curious, and I get this question often from new trial members or investors who are just starting out with options. And they'll ask, Mike, what settings do you or Ernie use to find positions in blank strategy? Well, they're already there. The default searches we have in a given strategy are the starting points that Ernie and I use to find new positions for our personal account as well. Whether we're doing straddles around earnings or strangles, whether we're doing calendar spreads, well, I do those, Ernie typically doesn't, or whether we're buying calls or just doing covered calls or naked puts. Those search criteria are put in based on what we would use and to help you get started to create your own search. Now, are those default searches recommendations? No. You can use them as recommendations and do your further research and analysis to narrow it down and make sure it's a trade that you want to make. But those saved searches are really designed to be starting points and stepping stones to help you put in some additional criteria that you might want to use. Now, for various strategies, we do offer what we call the picks of the day, where we've historically tested criteria sets that gave the best return over a 1-year, 2-year, or almost 30-month period. Those are available in covered calls, naked puts, and kind of the bull put and bear call credit spreads, and we'll talk about that more later. So if we have these criteria available for you and these picks of the day for these strategies, why do we have the search tool at all? Well, our needs and our goals and our settings and each strategy are what work for us. You might be more conservative in your covered calls. You might want to go 30 to 60 days out in time or more, going deep in the money for a higher downside protection. You might be more aggressive. You might look for bear calls or bull put credit spreads that are right at the money, have maybe a 0.5 delta at a lower probability of success because you're trying to get closer to a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 risk-reward ratio instead of an 8-to-1 or 9-to-1 risk-reward ratio on a spread that has a 90% probability. You might prefer a different time frame. Many of you know that I trade the radioactive techniques in my personal accounts, but I have investors that do married puts but only go 2 or 3 months out in time with their insurance as opposed to 5 months or 6 months out in time. I also do standard collars with a portion of my portfolio that only go 15 to 20 days out in time. I have investors that do standard collars as well that go a year out in time looking for a minimum return and maximum risk that match their goals. But they don't want to watch the position that often. They just want to set it and forget the collar, leave it alone for 300 or 400 days, and then check it if there's a big market movement but not check it on a regular basis. And of course, you might already have specific criteria in mind for your trading plan and for your account size. Believe me, again, as I mentioned, you do have a set of criteria already in mind, even if you don't know it yet. Even if you're just getting started with options and you want to trade cash secured naked puts, you probably already have 5 or 6 criteria in mind to fill into the search that would already narrow down your universe of options. Now, I often get a lot of questions from new trial members, even subscribers from time to time whose maybe trading plan is adjusted with the market conditions. But often we get these questions where I want to see bull put spreads on broad-based market ETFs over $100 that expire in 2 days. No problem. If they're available and they match your return requirements and goals, the search tool will find it. Sometimes get that question, I only want covered calls on dividend-paying stocks, maybe blue chip stocks that expire 65 to 90 days out in time and cross the ex-dividend date. It's not a problem. That's only about 4 or 5 clicks to set that search up, and you might only have 30 or 40 results that match your criteria for return requirement and dividend needs. Going back to the naked puts, question that came in a few weeks ago, I want to see naked puts that are 15% out of the money and offer a 10% annualized yield. Well, no problem. We can even find maybe 10 or 15 day out options that match that. But the problem is the initial premium might not match your goals. You might want to go 30 to 60 days out to get to 15% of the money and still get a decent premium. And that's all things you can set. And of course, I get questions such as, hey, I want to see long call opportunities on stocks that are in the lower 10% of their 52-week range, cross below the lower Bollinger Band, just had a positive MACD crossover, and have a delta of 0.79 to 0.96 and are considered undervalued. Well, that's a very specific screen. And if those exist, the search tool will find them for you. But let's take a step back. What does this really mean to you? Common questions we also receive and why the search tool is so flexible. I get questions such as, what is the best covered call trade right now? What is the best iron condor on SPX? What is the best trade for Apple? Well, my response is typically, what makes the best covered call to you? Is it based on return, downside protection, quality of the stock? Is the best iron condor the highest return or the highest probability, or a combination of the two using sort of an expectancy calculation? Okay. What is the best trade for Apple? Well, what is your sentiment on Apple, and what is your time frame? The answers to those questions, even if it's just a 4-word answer, are all you need to create your search from scratch. Now, just this morning, I had a conversation with a new trial member. He's only logged on 2 or 3 times. He went to covered calls, and he pulled up the weekly covered call screen, the picks of the day, but the full view in the search that had about 45 results. But he saw that the results were slightly in the money based on earnings testing and strong performance. This investor only wanted to trade out of the money covered calls instead of in the money, but he couldn't get the results he wanted even though he was doing the right thing. Well, why? Well, let's take a look. I'll pause this real quick. Let's navigate over to the PowerOptions suite of tools here. Okay, there we go. All right, so what we're looking at here is the basic trial account for a PowerOptions member. Those of you just getting started, I encourage you to take advantage of step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4 here with the various tutorials, free webinars, and of course, the coaching session. What are we talking about here? Let's go into the covered call tab. And when I look at the main home view of the covered call, we can see the different links to access the tools. And you have your quick access here for the monthly picks of the day and the weekly picks of the day, which just show you the top 2 or 3 results based on earnings testing and what he did. And there's, of course, a full definition and description of how he traded those in the historical account, what he would have done, how many positions opened, and so forth. But when we go into the search for any strategy, either navigating it with the sub-tabs or clicking on the link in the Tools pod here on the main homepage for the strategy, we're going to see a list of trades. And again, these are not direct recommendations or suggestions that come up on the screen. These are the results of one of our default searches, or if you've already saved the search, the one that you last used. So let's scroll down here and take a look. We're looking at the weekly picks of the day screen. We also have other default searches for you for at the money, in the money, there we go, at the money, in the money, the monthly picks of the day, and out of the money covered calls. Now the investor wanted to go ahead, start with this view real quick, but he had a specific idea in mind. He was looking at Micron that came up in the results, and I think at the time earlier this morning, Finisar was also in there as well. But he noticed that these covered calls were all in the money. Juno Therapeutics 56.47, we're looking at the 2-day out November 55 call. Well, he wanted to go further out, and he wanted to see out of the money covered call opportunities. So it's a real simple switch. We already saw the criteria available for the options, and anytime you're in the search, you scroll down below the listed trades. Over here on the right-hand side, you'll see the active filters that are being used for each saved search. So we can see here that we're looking for a percent if unchanged of greater than 0.5%, 1% in the money minimum, option bid price of 20 cents, and then some basic stock fundamentals, stock technicals, avoiding earnings between now and expiration, and more. Well, again, it can be intimidating, but we took a look here and the customer decided he didn't want today's trades or Friday's trades 2 days away. He wanted to go out to next week, 24th of November expiration, short market trading day. So we just had to adjust the time frame, didn't we? It's about 7-8 days out in time, so let's go ahead and increase this, and we'll look for the expiration that's 2 to maybe 14 days out in time. And scrolling down, he said, well, wait, here's the percent in the money filter that they used. I saw it on my active filters as well, so I know that's forcing it to be in the money. Let's change that. Instead of being 1% in the money or more, let's go to at least 0% out of the money. All right, 2 simple changes, get the results he wanted. Let's go ahead and click Submit Search. But something's going to happen here, and this was his problem. It was simply that no stock option combinations meet your search criteria. Well, we know it's not the stock criteria because we had about 15-20 results that matched the stock criteria within the money options. So that's not the issue. It's not the net premium of only 20 cents. Out of the money options will offer that. Simple thing he was missing is that things do go hand in hand. In addition to going 1% in the money on the default search, we're also looking for positions that had a 65% probability of being assigned or higher. Now, with a simple change of moving from in the money to out of the money, what do we know about out of the money options? They're not going to have that 65% probability of assigned, are they? No, they're going to be lower, 10, 15, 20, maybe 30%. So let's just take that out. Leave the rest of the filters. Go ahead and click Submit Search. Now we've got exactly what we wanted. The same stocks we saw before, some of the therapeutics, Micron Technology, Lululemon, names that we recognize, but now we're looking at the out of the money options, either just at, here for MOMO, stocks at 30.46, and of course we're looking at the 30.5 strike. Micron, we're looking at the 46 with a stock trading at 45.65. With just a few simple clicks, he changed it to exactly what he wanted. Only problem was he missed one small thing, and that was the probability. Now, we see that we have 66 total results. Might be a little bit too much. My plan and my goal when I'm creating a search or narrowing down the universe of options in a given strategy, I typically only want to see 20 to 25 results. I've got the criteria that I want already in here. We want it to be out of the money. Looked at some open interest. Okay. We're looking for stocks with good volume and in an uptrend as part of the default. But what else do we know? What else can we change? Anything you want. You wanted to force it to just find positions that have at least a 1.5% return if assigned? Let's just plug that in. And once we make one subtle change, we'll hit submit. I don't want to make 4 or 5 changes right now. So if I put in 4 or 5 new criteria and then run the search, if I get no results, I don't know which criteria really narrowed that down. What's another requirement we can do? Well, we've got some high-priced stocks in here. WIBO up at 111. We've got Take-Two Interactive at about $117 and Align Tech at $250. Of course, a covered call, we have to buy the stock and sell the call against it. Your requirement based on your portfolio size might be that you don't want to trade stocks for a covered call or maybe a cash-secured naked put or maybe a married put that are higher than $75 per share. You may also have a preference that you don't want to trade stocks that are below $20 per share. No problem. We'll go to fundamentals. We had the default in there for the stock price to be greater than 10. Let's just put in our new requirements. I want stocks greater than 20, but less than, let's say, 80. We run that. And there, just with a few simple changes. We changed the system to look for what we wanted out of the money covered calls. We put in our preferred stock price range, and we increased the minimum return if assigned to match our trading plan. And we've narrowed the total universe of roughly 4,500 optionable stocks, indexes, and ETFs to only 35 results that match our personal criteria. That's how easy it is to use the tools as a stepping stone to create your own personal search. But I just wanted to point out that although you can change from in the money to out of the money effectively, just make sure there's nothing in the delta or the probability field that might change the results. So just moving from in the money to out of the money is great because it matches his trading plan. But we want to make sure that there wasn't a filter here for a delta of greater than 0.5 because out of the money options would have a delta of lower than 0.5. And of course, we would want a probability. Couldn't have that probability in there of greater than 65 because no out of the money options would have that. So those things, the return for your position, range in or out of the money, and the probability and delta will go hand in hand. So if you make a subtle change and you don't see any results, the search tool is not broken. There's just one other filter in there that's countering what your change made. Okay? Now, are these the best covered calls? Well, I can't really answer that. And that's why we have further tools to help you research and analyze the stock, the option, delve down deeper into detailed research and more. Well, that's for another presentation. As I mentioned, if I'm trading a weekly covered call in my portfolio or a weekly naked put, I'm going to start off with the weekly picks of the day, just as the customer did today, and then I'll make changes based on my needs. I'm going to say these are all good covered call candidates. But again, it's really not about me. It's about you. And that's why this tool is so flexible. Now, Sam has been talking, Sam sent in some comments and some questions about some of the positions that he's in, but he also mentioned that the market is getting bearish, so it's better to do collars or married put positions or a bearish position opposed to covered calls. Yes. I agree with you on that. We're just showing this as an example rather than a strategy discussion. Okay, we're showing an example of the search tool itself as opposed to the strategy discussion. So I agree with you that I'm more bearish and I'm more protected right now with married puts, collars as well. But this is just an example of how to use the search tool and how effective it can be. Now let's take a brief moment here now that we've talked a little bit about the search tool. I apologize. Let's go ahead here and go back and just discuss one or two more things, and we'll come back to the search tool in just a moment. So we talk about what is the best covered call. Were those screens we were just looking at, would I say those were the best covered calls? Well, those are the best covered calls for the customer that emailed and called in this morning. Again, what is best for you? Would you prefer a higher percent if assigned for 14, 30, 60 days out in time? We would just adjust the criteria to match your needs. Is the best covered call a reasonable 1 to 2% return that's slightly in the money with a higher probability? Well, we've seen success with that with our picks of the day, and that's why those ones were slightly in the money with the weekly picks of the day. But again, that's what's best for you. I had a coaching session on Monday. A gentleman wanted to set up a search for naked puts and collars, just looking at blue chip stocks, high market cap or a broad market ETF that still had the returns that he wanted. One of the problems with that screen that we were creating for him is that he wanted weeklies. Well, he wanted to look at SPY and find a collar that offered a 4% return if assigned and risk no more than 3%. Well, for a 7-8 day trade, that's rather hard to find. We had to go 25 to 35 days out in time because of the lower volatility. But the search tool will allow you to find that. If I only wanted to trade a collar on an ETF, broad market ETF like SPY or QQQ, that was 10 days out in time, less than 10, 15 days out in time, and had a 4% return, only a 3% risk, I would search for that. And if I get no results, I know that there's nothing, no combination that matches my criteria. So I wouldn't be making a trade at that point if that was my specific trading plan. So whatever you feel is best, the search tool is going to find it. Now, what is our best covered call? Well, this is why we developed the picks of the day. Okay? And you'd say, well, why would you have a monthly and a weekly picks of the day? Some investors are turned off by the weekly options. They prefer not to do that many trades and not to roll as many positions perhaps. But if you ask me what is the criteria I would use for a covered call, a naked put, or a credit spread, well, here are the testing results that we had. From our picks of the day, from May 22nd, 2015, I didn't go in the future, sorry, 2015 to September 18th, end of expiration is September 2017, 28 months, and we have been in a bullish market. Okay? But those monthly picks of the day, following the rules that Ernie discussed in the picks of the day field, a $100,000 account went up to $166,100. Right? So it was a 66.1% return, making about 2 to 3 trades per month from the results. The top results that came up on the picks of the day. It was a 90% success rate on 68 total trades over that 28-month period. The weekly covered calls, well, that had about 185% return, an 81% success rate. But again, why have both weeklies and monthlies? Some investors are turned off by the potential of doing 242 trades, entering 3 to 4 trades every week. The commission fees piled up. So whether you want to be monthly to look for a little higher return and better downside protection, or weekly, those are our results from the historical trades. A naked put picks of the day are interesting. In the first year that Ernie traded, historically tested these from May 2015 to June 2016, the monthly and weekly naked puts were slightly higher, and then they sort of fell. They're still positive returns. Monthly naked put was a 47% return over the 28-month period with a 74% success rate, 54 trades total. And the weekly naked put picks of the day was a 79.3% return. Okay. Now we don't have a picks of the day set up in the credit spreads, but I've set up the weekly bull put search and the weekly bear calls based on which one gave us the higher return. They will be picks of the day fields soon. But the weekly bull puts were an 84.5% return with an 85% success rate and 162 trades of that same 28-month period. Because of the nature of the bull put credit spread or any credit spread, we simulated the return with the same $100,000 account, used our tools to trade it historically, but we only allocated 20% of that portfolio to the top 3 trades each cycle. Why? Because if you hit a bad cycle in a credit spread or debit spread, we could have wiped out all three trades. All three trades could have hit the full loss with an unexpected black swan event. So in the first cycle, if I allocated the full $100,000, well, we could have lost it all. So you only allocate maybe 10 to 20% of your total portfolio to credit spreads. But with the $20,000 allocated to start, the ending account was $184,500. So over the $100,000 portfolio was an 84.5% return. But you could say it was a $64,500 profit on the $20,000 allocated as well. We don't show it that way. We prefer to show it just the total account, even though we didn't allocate the full $100,000. But again, you could look at it as a 320% return. Okay? So if you ask me what is my best covered call, I'd say the weeklies. But if you're not fond of trading that much, because every investor is different, you can see here what the monthly picks of the day did for you, and that would be my starting point. If I was opening a new covered call or a new naked put or a bull put credit spread today or a bear call, those are the searches I would start with. Okay? But your needs are different. And we give you the starting point, as I mentioned, to use as a stepping stone, but you're going to have your own searches. And whether you know it or not, if you're interested in a given strategy, you already have 5 to 10 criteria in mind. The rule is to keep it simple. Start with just the criteria you want in a given strategy and then narrow it down from there. Even with only using 5 or 6 criteria in a specific search, or specific strategy I should say, you're going to narrow down the universe of options more than you think. All right? But proof is in the pudding. Let's take a look. Here are, of course, the 24 different strategies that we support on PowerOptions that you can create a search for as well. Okay? Jim says weekly bull puts are offered later. You didn't find it. It's not a pick of the day. It doesn't have its own button, as we saw with the covered calls, where it has monthly picks of the day or weekly picks of the day. Soon you'll have a button that just says bull put picks of the day, and it'll go to the weekly search. But Jim, if you go right into the search and you select the weekly bull put picks or the weekly bull put search, which I'll show you in a second, that's the criteria that I would use. Okay? It's not a picks of the day, but that's the exact criteria that are going to be in the bull put picks of the day. So it's already up, it's just not listed as a pick of the day. All right. But let's go ahead and create our basic strategy from scratch, a basic search from scratch. And we're going to just take bear call credit. And for those of you that are new, of course, and might not be familiar, what is a bear call credit? Well, it's a leveraged credit spread. We're going to typically sell an out-of-the-money call above the current stock price, and we're going to buy a higher strike call to limit the margin. Risk is the difference in the strike prices, and we receive a net credit up front because the option we're selling is out of the money, but it's closer to the stock price, going to have a higher premium than what we see with the option that we're buying. You can see here by the profit and loss chart, what is the sentiment and expectation? Well, it's a bearish strategy. Stock price might be here. I'm going to sell this out of the money call and buy a higher call. Naturally, we see the profit is if the stock stays the same or moves down in price. So what do I want? I want a stock that's in a downtrend. I want to avoid an earnings surprise. Okay, I don't want to see earnings between now and expiration. I want a leveraged return. So even going 10, 14 days out in time, I might be looking for a 10, 11, 12% return going out to November 24th. And I want a high probability of success, 70, 75, 80% or higher, that the stock would remain below the short call strike price. You could also use delta instead of probability. You want a delta of less than 0.3 for the option that you're selling for that higher probability as well. Okay? All right. So how do we create that search? It's very simple. Let's go back to PowerOptions. All right, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go to bear call credit. And as Jim mentioned, you don't see a picks of the day, but let me start off with the search. And as we saw before, Once we click on the search for a given strategy, we're going to see just those trades that matched our particular default setting. Here again, we're starting off with the weekly bear call credits. But we're going to change that. And again, Jim, this is where I would start. This would be the picks of the day criteria for the weekly bear call credits and the weekly bull puts. But let's do our search. We're going to clear the filters. And everything's out now. Okay? Well, what do we want to look for? We said we wanted to look for a stock in a downtrend. Okay? So let's go to technicals. And let's keep it simple. I'm not going to mess around with Bollinger Bands. Bandwidth, the historical trends, the days under, for example, the stock being under the 20-day or 50-day or 100-day moving average. I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to look at MACD. All I'm simply going to do is say I want to find stocks that are currently trading below their 20-day moving average. So just select stock below SMA 20. As you saw, you can customize that too. If you prefer to look for ones where the 50-day is below the 100 or the 20-day is below the 50, you can set that as well. Okay? We're just going to start with keeping it simple. I want stocks that are below their 20-day moving average. What else did I need to do? I wanted to avoid earnings. Okay? So we're just going to the fundamentals field. We're not going to set anything for stock price or market cap or anything along those lines. We're simply going to check the box to avoid earnings between now and expiration. Well, we're doing a credit spread. What else do we know? Well, hold on here. Let me just, there we go. All right. Wow. Things not closing for me. I do apologize. There we go. We want it to be short term. We don't want to look 2 days out, although we could. We could easily put that in to see what matched our criteria. We're going to go to the next cycle. We're going to put it all expirations, but hey, if you wanted to go just to a standard December or January expiration, click that as well. We're going to go all expirations. We're just going to go 2 to 14 days out in time. Now I want a good premium. I want a decent premium, but knowing that the weekly options that are going to be out of the money that I want should only expect maybe 15 or 20 cents of net credit. We're going to start with a minimum net credit of 15 cents, whether it's a 1-point spread, a 2-point spread for the margin or less. Let's just put in a minimum net credit. And we're using leverage, so I want at least a good 8-9% return. So we're going to limit the percent return to be 8% or greater. Now, I could force the system to show me short option strikes that are 3%, 4%, 5% out of the money. I'm just going to put in 0% out of the money at first because I want to focus on probability. And again, we're just going to start off with a probability of 80% or higher. The theoretical probability, the stock would remain below the short call and both options would expire worthless, which is what we want in our bear call spread. As always, I might want some liquidity. So let's just put in something basic. I only want to see options that have traded at least one contract today or more. So I'll just put an option volume greater than 0 to show active options. I'm going to want an open interest of greater than 10. Okay, is that a lot? I mean, is that a lot of criteria? Now think about it. Shows me here, as I'm changing it, my active filters are going to red, showing me the changes I've made before I've hit submit. We've put in the time frame we want. Yeah, we know based on our trading plan what that is. I want a minimum net credit to cover commission costs based on how many contracts on average I trade with the strategy. Want a good leverage return. Want that good probability. And I want some liquidity. I want a stock in a downtrend, and I want to avoid earnings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 settings. So between 5 and 10. Is that enough? Is that enough to narrow down the universe of options? Let's check. Let's go ahead and click Submit. Here's some of our trading results. We see Tesla in there, CMG. SPX is in there too. I didn't narrow it down to just stocks or avoid indexes, so indexes, ETFs are all on my list, Netflix and more. Even if you're slightly bullish on Netflix, you can see the range out of the money. Selling the 202.5 and buying the 205 gives you a 19-cent net credit or 8.2% return, but you have a high probability of the stock remaining below 202.5 in the next 9 days. Look here. Out of the entire universe of options, all the possible bear call spreads, with just putting in 7 basic criteria, what any investor would probably look for as a starting point: decent net credit, leverage return, good probability, stock in a downtrend, avoid earnings, and just a little basic liquidity. We've narrowed down the entire universe of options to only 22 bear call spreads that match our needs. We can see the highest return if we want. We can change the sort function by any of the criteria you can use in a given strategy, and you can sort it by probability. You can also customize the table view with the Choose Columns button. What this will allow you to do is customize the data field. If you wanted to add in more criteria for the average stock volume, for example, market cap, to compare the positions, things that you would use to compare the positions and help you with your research and analysis, or if you wanted to delve deep into the delta of the short or long option, the delta ratio between the two, which I really use more for calendar spreads than credit spreads, annualized return, you can not only pick and choose which columns you want to see, but you can also change the column order to customize it to your needs as well, to help you when you first see the results come up. What are the most important factors to you in your spread search, your long call search, whatever strategy you're using, so you can immediately see the important facts, narrow it down even further for your research and analysis. Okay? Another feature on the search tool is that once you've created your search and you've got what you want, simply save your search. Okay? So I'll go ahead and click Save. It'll promptly just put in a name here, so we'll call it Bear Calls, November 15th. Then I can put in a basic description, 80% probability or higher, 8% return in a downtrend. All right, so let's just go ahead now and click Save this search. Anytime now I come back into this strategy, the bear calls, the system is going to remember which last save search I was viewing, whether it was one of the PowerOptions defaults or whether it was my personal search that I just created. So I don't have to do that every time, but I can still go back through and adjust the criteria if I feel market conditions have changed. I want to go to a higher probability, maybe sacrifice some return, go down to a 5% return for a 10 or 14-day trade with an 85 or 90% probability. If you want to adjust your strike differences, you want to look at 1 point or 2 point strike differences, we could just set that as well. Look at 1 point, 2 point, whatever you want to do. Okay? But this is always available for you now. You don't have to do it each time. And another feature up top is this Get Results by Email. Of course, what this Gets Results by Email will allow you to do is you can pick any of the default searches or any of our saved searches. And rather than logging on to PowerOptions, you can select to have those emailed to you at any time during the day. So if I want my bear calls November 15th, emailed to me today at 3 p.m. just before the market closes, or Ernie even threw in 3:45 there as well, just before the market closes, I'll go ahead and save that. Now, at 3 o'clock today, I'll receive an email with the bear call credit spreads that matched my search results. Okay, so you can customize it any way you want. You can customize the table view. You can have those emailed to you at any time. That's sort of the power of the search tool. That's what is available here in the search tool for you for those 24 different strategies that we showed. All right, and we saw how simple it was. I can tell you that in the background, in the builder, we build all the different strategies every 15 to 20 minutes. There are approximately 1.89 million credit spreads, bull puts, bear calls, and then we take the bull puts and bear calls and combine them into iron condors that make sense. But I believe it's 1.8 million or so credit spreads that are built every 20 minutes. We saw by just setting in 6 to 7 different criteria that would match our general needs for the strategy sentiment without going in depth into, is my option overvalued or undervalued? Do I have the implied volatility range I want for selling the premium? Is my bid-ask spread in a range that I want? If you want to delve that deeply, you can. But without even going that far, just looking for a stock in a downtrend, avoiding earnings, basic net credit, basic leverage return, good probability in a short time frame, those 6 or 7 clicks, we narrowed the universe down to only a small number of trades. You can find easily only the trades that match your criteria. And as I mentioned, whether you know it or not, you do know the criteria. And as you put it into the search tool, you're seeing exactly what's being used to find the positions you want. Well, this is much better than a trade recommendation service or an advisory service. Sure, you get the picks, it's easy, but you don't know how the trades were being selected. You don't know what criteria was being used. Does that make sense for your needs, your goals, and your expectations of the market? Even as we saw with Jim, if I go into the bull puts or the bear calls and I select the weekly bull puts search, which I would use for the picks of the day, or the weekly bear calls, I see exactly what criteria is being used. I know right there why those trades came up in the results. You can easily widen the universe. With that bear call spread we just created, if I wanted to open it up to more results, I could simply lower the probability. We forced it to be 80% or higher. I could have knocked it down to 75. Probably would have given me 15 to 20 more results. I could have lowered the net credit. I could have lowered the return, but I'm still looking for stocks in a downtrend and avoiding earnings. I'm just opening up a little bit more to me. Okay, you are in control. That's the power of the search tools and the power of our patented search tool and PowerOptions. You're in control. You're able to set specifically what you want to see. It is a time saver. With just 5 clicks a moment ago, we narrowed the total universe of options down to about 2 dozen bear call spreads that matched my simple criteria. I don't have to go all over the place. I don't have to say, oh, well, why did this search appear, or I'm sorry, this spread appear on Tesla, but this one didn't? Because it didn't have the volume I wanted. It didn't have the net credit I wanted. I know why that result is not there. Okay? Don't be intimidated. I know even when you're getting started out, it can be a little bit daunting to see all those criteria. Just review the criteria in the 3 sections first. Take a quick look at the option criteria, the technicals, and fundamentals. Just put in those 5 or 6 criteria that match your needs first. And then, if you have 250 results with your 5 criteria, narrow it down further. Increase your probability. Increase your net credit. That'll take you down to maybe 75. Now you can put in some other stock criteria. You'll narrow it down to 40 or 50. Okay, so start off, and then when you're putting in to lower the results down, just put in 1 criteria at a time. Submit the search. If you already have a starting point, it's not a good idea to put in 6 additional criteria and hit submit, because you might get no results. You don't know which one really did it. So once you get that base starting point on your search, just put in 1 or 2 criteria at a time. If you're still not sure what to use, well, we just reviewed what the historical results were for our picks of the day, and even the bull puts and the bear calls, and you can use any of our defaults as a stepping stone to create your own personal search and fine-tune your trades. It's flexible, customizable, and once you get familiar with it, it's fast and it's efficient. Everything we need to be successful as a starting point as options investors. And of course, as I mentioned, we do offer further tools to research, analyze the stock or the option, run what-if scenarios with the profit and loss chart, and of course the powerful portfolio tools to track and manage your positions and evaluate rollout opportunities. Of course, that is a discussion for another webinar and another presentation as well. All right, now I'm going to flash this up here, just remind you all here, if you haven't done so yet, remember, just take a free trial at any time. Go to powerop.com. All you need is your name and email address. No credit card or billing information is required. That'll give you access to the search tool and all of our other tools for 14 days on the 20-minute delayed service. It's one of the services, our subscription services start at $40 per month for the end of day service, and then they go up from there. The 20-minute delayed service is only $60 per month. All right. Now, let's see here. Jim says, not all my saved searches are available to be emailed to me Oh, okay, yeah, you can just, that's right, yeah. So let me pause for a moment there, and if anyone else is having that issue, Jim just found it. That's fantastic, Jim. I'm glad you just saw it. But let's go ahead here. So as we mentioned, we support 24 different strategies. If you first log on to your account, if you're just starting off on your trial and you don't see a strategy you want, notice I don't have long call or long put here available as one of my searches. Just click on Other Strategies, and then we can choose to remove any of the strategies we're not using. I can add in long call, calendar call, for example. You can customize that view based on which strategies you want to see. Now, to Jim's comment, I was in the bear call, remember? We went into search, pulled up my default search, and then we went ahead and clicked on Get Results by Email. And Jim said that not all of his saved strategies were there. Yes, this is just pulling it up one strategy at a time. So these are all the searches, the PowerOptions defaults, and the searches that we've created during webinars and other ones here for all of the saved searches I have available. But even though I was in the bear call search, I can just toggle between whatever searches and strategies I've created. So if I now want to say, let's go to long put, I want the PowerOptions default sent to me by email at 2 o'clock every day. Right? So we can just set that as well. So you can just toggle between there with that change strategy field, which Jim mentioned. All of your search results, I should say all of your saved searches and the PowerOptions defaults in any strategy you can select to have emailed to you at any time during the day. On certain levels of subscription, I don't think the Get Your Results by Email is available on that lower level of service. The $40 per month. Okay, Johnny mentioned, is this tool downloaded onto your computer or is it on your server? It's on our servers. You don't have to worry about downloading anything onto your computer or any kind of requirements. You can access it from anywhere. All you need is an internet connection and a browser. You'll have a user ID and password, well, your email address and your password, and you can log on today at any time. Sam mentioned today he was talking about his Roku trade from the Friday discussion that has been doing really well. Sam also mentioned he's got no trades today. He's managing his Apple, UVXY, and SPY. So not many trades this week. We see that little pull down today. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show that for Jim, and of course mention that for Johnny, that you can go ahead and not something to download. You have it there at any time as available. Okay, so you'll just, if you start your 14-day free trial, you can access it from any computer with an internet connection and a browser. One more quick thing I wanted to point out, of course, today's presentation is being recorded. We will post it in the archives, and at any time you can access the archives just by clicking the free webinars tab underneath the main home tab. But this is also a public page. Even if you don't have a trial or you're not a current member, at any time you can go to powerop.com/webinars.asp. I just sent that to everyone in the chat link, and you can scroll through our webinars on the tools. There's the one on researching and analyzing a new trade. There's another one on the search criteria, various presentations on the option strategies, debit versus credit spreads, naked puts, management techniques for the given strategies, basic options concepts, weekly options, managing broken positions, and of course our Friday discussions are all archived here under the requested topics as well. So it's a free page, a public page. You can access that at any time. Just go to powerop.com/webinars.asp. Now, last but not least, of course, ladies and gentlemen, I just mentioned here, if you haven't taken that trial, remember, just go to powerop.com. You can start your 14-day free trial. And if you have other questions, if you're already a customer and you have other questions, remember, trial members and subscribers can schedule a coaching session at any time. The coaching session is essentially a 35 to 45-minute phone conversation with myself or with Ernie. We will walk you through the tools on the site and answer any questions that you have, and you can have as many coaching sessions as you want during your trial period or as a subscriber. Of course, those of you who aren't current members, if you have a question about the capability of the search tool that we saw today or the other functions of PowerOptions, you can give me a call anytime during market hours. You can reach us at 302-992-7971. You can send me an email at any time to support@powerop.com. And of course, remember, you can check out our archives, powerop.com/webinars.asp. I'm going to send everyone an email when today's webinar is posted. You can also check us out on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and just search for Power Options, and a lot of our webinars are posted on the public YouTube channel as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me today for our sort of quick review on the power and flexibility of using the PowerOptions Search tool. I hope you got some useful information out of today's presentation, and I look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming live presentations as well. Every Friday, of course, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we do host an open forum Q&A session. I expect to see Sam there, of course. Rajiv and many others regulars will come into our Friday discussions, and it's always great to have everyone there. It's a completely free webinar, as was today's, and you go to that webinars page, you'll be able to click the link to watch live webinars. You can register for Friday's expiration edition. So we had a standard November expiration at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where there's no planned material. I just handle all of the questions on the fly, okay? Okay, Johnny says I don't see the free trial link. Just go to powerop.com. Okay, and then off to the right, you'll see this field. Give me 1 second, Johnny. I'll illustrate that there. Oh, sorry, folks. Let me just go ahead there. All right, let's go back to powerop.com. Okay, so here we are. I'm logged in, of course, to my webinar account here. Let me wait for that to pop up for you. All right, let me just go ahead and log out down here at the bottom. All right, so Johnny, you just go to powerop.com or the index.asp. And right over here on the right-hand side, you should see this field. Just put in your first name, last name, and email address. You know, let us know maybe how you heard about us or if you're experienced or novice, and then just click Start My Trial. Okay, so just powerop.com, the main home page, just right in here. Let me go ahead and erase the drawings there in 1 second. All right, so I can just put in my name, put in my email. All right, just have to do it over there on the side of the form when you go to the main homepage, right off on the right-hand side here. And select, all right, I'll say I'm experienced. And how'd you hear about us? Let's see here, broker, friend, message board, blog, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to say YouTube or other. I should say webinar in there. Is that how you heard about us? But that's okay. Just select how you heard about us. You don't even need to put in there, and then just click the button here for Start My Trial Now. Of course, if I click this, it's already going to tell me that I have an active subscription to the site. So that's that. But yes, just put in your name, email address, let us know a little bit about you and how you heard about us, and then click Start My Trial Now. We'll email you a password, and then you'll be able to get started. And even if you started that today, Johnny, you fill out the information, but you can't get to it today, don't worry. The 14-day free trial will not start until you first log on to your account. So even if you waited to the weekend and access it on Saturday, you'd have 14 days access from Saturday when you first log on to your trial account. All right, of course, remember, Johnny, or anyone else, if you have any other questions at any time, just go ahead and give me a call. Send me an email, okay? And we look forward to hearing from you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Have a fantastic remainder of your trading week. I hope to see some of you live on our Friday open forum Q&A session after a standard expiration, of course, and we'll get ready for the second to last week of trading in November as we head into December, the last month of 2017. Can you believe we're already here? Amazing. But anyway, hope to see you soon. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Good night.